Now, Moshe Rabbeinu, what does he have? Does he have an Egyptian name? It's an interesting thought because who names him? Batya. Batya names him. And today I was sitting in Koil. I go to Rav Maman's shiur over here. Somebody there they asked. He said, "She's a goy. She's a goy, and she's naming him, and we're taking this very seriously."
She's using Hebrew words.
Oh, so she probably didn't speak Hebrew, right? Kiminamayim Mishitiu. She called him Moshe. Kiminamayim Mishitiu. The question is, what was it in ancient Egyptian? She spoke ancient Egyptian.
That Moshe.
Yes.
We
Right. When you look at Tanakh, everybody looks like they're speaking Hebrew. They're not all speaking Hebrew. Okay?
You probably know Hebrew, that's what I'm saying.
Why would you know Hebrew?
Wait.
Did Paro know Hebrew?
Yeah.
Yes. He knew 70 languages.
No.
That was one language he didn't know. That was one language. Okay, that was sorry. That was one language he didn't know was Hebrew. Okay. So, but yeah, if she knew Hebrew, I highly doubt it. But we convert whatever she used.
But they had a lot of slaves, a lot of Jewish slaves. What language were they speaking?
Oh, they had to have a language where they could talk to them, but they wouldn't use. So okay, there's a question, right? They had slaves, so they did know how to talk to them. They probably spoke to them in ancient Egyptian also. Maybe they had people who could translate. It's a big question. I was just in Tzfat a few days ago, and I went to the kever of Reb Shimshon Mikrimenstock. Shimon Mikrimenstock is Reb Nachman's first Talmud. Reb Nachman Rebreslev has a Talmud that he meets before he gets married. And he says, we need to get together. We need to talk just after I get married. Because it seems like he can't teach before he's married. So I'm going now to the chuppah. I'm going to get married. We're going to talk. And then Rav Shimon Mikrimenstock becomes Rav Nachman's first Talmud. And then Rav Nachman says, we need to go to Israel. They live in Medvedka in Ukraine. And they come all the way to Eretz Yisrael. And they get here and they have to go into quarantine. Because they have to go into quarantine because if you're coming from a different country, this is very common in many different countries. The Chidah, for example, Rabbi Yosef Chaim David Azulai, a great rabbi, born in Jerusalem, traveled the world. He traveled the world. He was a Shadar, he's a Shluchah D'Rabbanan. He went to collect money. He went all over the world. He ends up taking up a position as a rabbi in Livorno, in Italy. We went, maybe that day you must actually. But he ends up in Livorno and he gets buried over there. And today you can visit his kever in Har HaMenuchas. How is that? Because Rav Mordechai Eliyahu went to Livorno and brought his bones to Eretz Yisrael. And when you go to Har HaMenuchas, you have the big parking lot, and you can park over there in the big parking lot, and he's right over there. And it's the first stop I always go to because it's a closed area and it's sunny, so it's closed, and it's air conditioned.
No.
What?
Who's buried in Har HaMenuchas?
Rabbi Yosef Chaim David Azulai, the Chidah. In Har HaMenuchas, very close to the big bus station, to the big parking lot. And it's air conditioned, and there's usually food. So you go there and you have everything over there. And he's buried in the same oil, in the same structure, which is bigger than this lounge. You have both of these big rabbis, the chief rabbi of Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu, and the Chidah right next to him. And the Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu says, no, Rav Ovadia is, he's in a different cemetery. He's in Sanhedria. But Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu, when he went to Livorno, so he exhumed the coffin, and he could feel the bones rattling inside, the bones of the Chidah rattling inside, and he tapped on the coffin and he said, Atzamot histadru lachem. Atzamot histadru lachem. And he heard tak, 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 and Then when he shook the coffin didn't make noise anymore. He organized his own body inside. That's very cool. We know the same thing from the Arizal. When the Arizal, right, Mikveh Ha'ari in Tzfat, that is not where, that wasn't his mikveh. He didn't go to that mikveh. He had a different mikveh. He was only there when that's the mikveh they used for the dead people. That's for the tahara. You're supposed to put a dead person in the mikveh. So if you feel bad that you've never been to the mikveh, don't worry. We're all going to end up in a mikveh one day after Ameh Esrei.
That's the reason.
Yeah. So when they went to bury the Arizal, so they went to the mikveh, so went to the taharas, they went to the mikveh, he stood up and he went into the mikveh, and then he went back onto the mita, the bed that they carry the dead people on. And the same story is also with the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid Mezrich. The Maggid Mezrich said his five closest Talmidim are the only ones who can bury him. One of them was a Balatanya, and the Balatanya held his head. So you know, Chabad is about machshava, it's about thought. It's a very cognitive Hasidus. Maybe if you want to learn Hasidus, first check out the Tanya, because it's very much thinking. And each one of the Talmidim held a different part of him, and their Hasidus follows a certain part of the body, according to that. So, Reb Shimon
Do you know which
McCrimmon,
body parts?
if
Do you know
what?
which body part? Do you know which body parts each one held?
Yes, it doesn't work out as nicely as we would like it to, right? I mean, we would like it to work out. We would like it to work out in that way. I have to look it up. I don't have it right now, right over here, but it doesn't really work out as nicely as we would like. But it's yeah. I'll look it up and I'll tell you. In any event, we were speaking. It was all kind of a sidetrack, and I was speaking about Reb Shimon McCrimmenstock. That went to his kever. He's buried very close to the Arizal. He's just beneath the Arizal, and they were in quarantine when they came here. And I was telling you the Chida was also in quarantine when he got to Italy, and that's when he writes Shem HaGdolim. He writes a whole book. He was in quarantine for like 5 days, and he wrote a whole book. And so Reb Nachman and Reb Shimon Krimstock are in quarantine in Haifa. There's the Haifa harbor. It was very small back then. Akko was the big harbor. For some reason, they end up in Haifa a lot. And when they find it out of the quarantine, Reb Nachman says, that's it. I've done all my tikkunim. I don't need to stay here anymore. We don't need to stay in Eretz Yisrael. We can go back to Medvedka. Go back to Ukraine. And Reb Shimon says, no way on earth did I spend a few months with you on ships going from one place to another in storms. There was one time that their ship almost sunk. It was such a storm. And the Mediterranean, it's actually a little better when it comes to storms. But the ship was it was an old ship, and it was a cheap ticket that they got. It was shaking from side to side, and everybody's screaming. And Reb gets up and he says, if you be quiet, the sea will also be quiet. And everybody took breaths and relaxed themselves, and the waves also relaxed. So there's a lot of mussar in that, a lot of stuff we can learn for ourselves also from just that story. So Reb Shimon Krimstock says to Reb Nachman, we are going to see Eretz Yisrael. We're going to go to Tzfas. We're going to go to Tiberia. We're going to go to Yerushalayim. We're not just going to stay on the ship and go back to Europe now. And Reb Nachman says, fine. You can see, by the way, that he's a Talmud, but they're pretty much the same age. So he can tell Reb Nachman what to do. Later on, Reb Nachman's biggest Talmud is Reb Nosson Steinhartz, was Nosson me? I forgot which town he comes from. Nemirov. Nemirov. And that's the biggest Talmud. He wrote almost all Reb Nachman's farm. Reb Nachman didn't write much. I think the Kutei Moharan he wrote himself.
That is in Tavis, like a week and a half ago.
Oh, it was. It just was.
This one, yeah.
Okay, so we have 9 Sfarim from Reb Nachman, and almost everything was written by this Talmud Reb Nosson. But this is an earlier one. This is Reb Shimon Reb Reb Shimon, who later on they part ways, and Reb Shimon stays in Eretz Yisrael and he gets buried in Tzfas.
Why is it known?
Because it's early on. It's early on in Reb Nachman's career. He is known. He is known, but he's not like Reb Nosson, because he didn't write his things down. And so they go to Tzfas and they go to Tveria, and it's all very exciting. And then they have to rush back to Akko because Napoleon is coming to conquer Akko. This is in 1799. Napoleon conquered so much of the world, right? Almost every great conqueror made it to Eretz Yisrael. Can you name a conqueror that didn't try to get to Eretz Yisrael? Hitler was a big conqueror. He also tried to get here. 1942, he stopped in El Alamein.
The biggest conqueror in history.
Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan, his son and grandson continued his conquests, and they came all the way here, and they were stopped in Harod in 1267, so 1262. Either 1262 or 1267, I'm not sure. I think it's 1267. They were stopped over there. There was the battle over there, and they were stopped in 1267. And so they didn't make it here either. Alexander the Great was a great conqueror. He also made it over here. But the Romans, the great conquerors, they also made it over here. Everybody wanted to. This is the center of the world. This is really the center of the world. You look at maps today, England is in the middle of the world because the maps were made by the British. And so they put England in the middle. But really, this is the center.
It's really the center.
Israel's very close. Look at it closely. I'll tell you, because of the Pacific, it could be today, today England could be not that much in the middle, because of just practically. But back then,
Everywhere is moving.
I guess everywhere's in the middle. It's a ball.
There's
It's
an Australian geographers that used to make maps, which was upside down, so Australia would be on top. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
The upside down.
Okay, so
Yeah.
getting back to our point over here, right? So Reb Nachman's gets to Akko, and then Napoleon attacks Akko, and he's under siege now for 3 weeks. He's stuck in Akko, and finally he manages to get out to run to Haifa, and he gets on a ship over there, and he sails out towards the Greek Isles because he needs to make his way to. It's difficult. It's like taking like when Move It sends you to like 4 different buses to get to some place. Go to here, go to there, go to there. So he found himself a ship that take him to the Greek Isles. It's the beginning of going like north and beginning to go up the Mediterranean. And so what ship did he get on? He got on a battleship with Ottoman soldiers, and they wanted to throw him and Reb Shimon off because what are you doing over here? This is it's for soldiers. You random strange people. You're not even Ottoman citizens.
How did they get on?
They managed to get on somehow.
They just smuggled themselves on?
Now, this is the way I see it. What language did they speak? They spoke Yiddish. They're from the shtetl. They know a little bit of Ukrainian, Russian, maybe. They're different languages. So maybe a little bit of Ukrainian. They know Yiddish. And what do the Ottomans here speak? Arabic and Turkish, which is also different languages. And so it's very difficult. There's no English back then, which is universally recognized. So very easily you can end up on the wrong ship going to the wrong place. And they told something to the guy on the ship, and he thought they were drafted, and he misunderstood them. When you have such language barriers, I can see how that can happen. So back to our point over here, we're speaking about the names and Moshe. What did Batya call him? Did she use some name in ancient Egyptian? So actually, some historians want to say his name was Moses, because the names back then of the kings, think of Ramesses. The says is like those were the names. Some historians want to say that we don't really know what the names were too well because the Greeks wrote down the Egyptian history. We don't have things written down from the Egyptians, and they use hieroglyphics, right? They write in symbols and pictures. So we don't really know. And so all the names that we have for especially by the mythology. Gods like Horus, Isis, or Ra. A lot of the names sound Osiris. Osiris. It sounds very Greek. So it's a big question. We don't really know. The truth is, we don't really know how to speak ancient Egyptian at all. You know, they mention us. The Egyptians speak about a nation, a tribal nation in this area, and they call us the Habiru. Habiru, it sounds like Ivrim. But it's so difficult to.
What is Hebrew? What does Hebrew come from?
Hebrew?
Ivri.
We're not with an H.
Ivri.
Ivri. Ivri is Me'ever HaYarden. But if they say.
Then it became Hebrew. Hebrews.
Yeah. But it's a question if to read it Habiru or Apiru. Apiru. It's very different. We don't know ancient Egyptian, bottom line. We can just, it's kind of guesswork. And it's something probably we're never going to work out. The archaeologists, the historians, the people that research ancient Egyptian culture, they are called Egyptologists. It's a whole thing. You can learn. You can do your bachelor's degree, your master's, your doctorate on Egyptology. Just focusing on Egypt. It's such a huge thing. But to know how things sounded, we don't really know. Okay. So
could it be that when the Torah says that she called him Moshe, so if she didn't speak in Lashon Kodesh, so the Torah is therefore that presumably translating whatever she said in Egyptian was taking to
that makes a lot of sense.
And then we're calling Moshe based on that. It could be that she called it something.
Yes,
similar.
yes.
Even different.
That's usually how things work. Usually when we you want to take stuff from different. You want to look at different kings and different people that spoke different languages. Nebuchadnezzar, what he spoke Hebrew, he didn't speak Hebrew, and you hear him talk. Like you read the psukim where he speaks.
But you know that's your interpreter. But over here, the name Moshe Rabbeinu, that's what he's called. Do Hashem called him?
Moshe, by the way, has 7 names. He has a lot of names.
Yeah, Moshe Rabbeinu has 10 names, no?
Something like Chida, Kudus.
Okay. Moving on, and we can see later on the Egyptians say we need to do something about Am Yisrael. Pen Yirbe, והכתקנו מלחמה, ונוסף גם הוא על שונאנו, ונלחם בנו ועל עם מן הארץ. Right? So we're worried about, the Egyptians are worried about Am Yisrael coming up and Am Yisrael attacking them from the inside. And so everything they do from there on just makes us bigger and stronger and makes the 10 Makkahs so much worse than they could have been. Right? Because in this Parsha, Hashem reveals himself to Moshe in the snare. And Hashem says to him, go and tell Paro, you want to go and have a chag for Hashem for 3 days in the Midbar and come back. That's what was presented at the beginning. And that's what Moshe says to him at the beginning. But they fight. The Egyptians fight with us. And it just becomes worse. And so here they're so worried, and they make Moshe into a villain, the Mashiach of Am Yisrael into a villain, and so then this becomes an issue.
What would have been if Pharaoh would have agreed the first time? So you know what? 3 days, and I want to see you back here at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it's a very good question. It's a very good question. Would Hashem do Hichbidis Libo, or Hashem knew ahead of time? I think if Hashem knew ahead of time, he would say no. I think that's what.
We told him at the beginning when when he told him at the snare that when no, I haven't learned the Parshas before.
Okay, that says it already there. Fine. But just think of this idea of you causing something to happen. And you being worried about something and causing it to happen. I think a lot about Yosef Mokir Shabbat. I don't know the story of Yosef Mokir Shabbat. But there was this neighbor of his, this guy that was really worried about, that heard from the Itztagninim, from the astrologers. The astrologers told this guy, you're going to have somebody who's going to take all your stuff, all your property is going to go to Yosef Mokir Shabbat. And so he gets really worried about this. So he sells everything he owns. He sells all his fields. He sells everything, and he buys one very expensive gem that he could watch closely, and he puts it onto his hat. And then when he walks over a bridge, the wind pushes it off, and it flies into the water, and a big fish comes and swallows the gem. And then they fish this up just before Shabbos, the fishermen. Who are we going to sell this to, they say, and they decide to sell it, and everybody says, Yosef Mokir Shabbat will buy it. He buys it. Fighting over it is not in, like, this is a Gemara in Shabbos of Kuf Yud Tes. It doesn't have that part of the story. Yosef Mokir Shabbat buys it. When he opens it up, he finds the gem inside, and after Shabbos he goes and he sells it. And the Gemara says that he got so much gold, he could fill up 13 attics, 13 aliyot gad. Which is, when the Gemara says this, there's deeper secrets behind it. And Parashat Avada,
and he had this big, massive, purple thing.
I saw.
Stone, and he opens up his fish. Here's the purple stone.
Yeah. So what I saw is that he dies, and then Yosef Mokir Shabbat actually could, and he doesn't have anybody who could inherit him. So it's okay. That's what I saw somebody write.
Maybe he jumps off because he's so sad that
maybe he commits
tries
suicide.
jumping after, or he jumps after the
He jumps after it. Okay. Okay. But it is a valid question. It is a valid question to begin with. Where does this happen, the story?
Yosef Mokir Shabbat.
So when you go up from Meron to Tzfat, there's a kever, Rabbi Yosef Dimin Yukrat, from Yukrat, but some say no, it's Yosef Mokir Shabbat. And he's buried there on the way from Meron to Tzfat. And then where did the story actually happen? The story would have happened, I would think, either in Tveria or maybe in Akko. Because Akko makes more sense, but you have big fish over there that can swallow something, and you also have wind. And right, and bridges. What bridges do you have in the area of the Kinneret? So it makes sense. Maybe it's a gesher over the Naaman. There's the big river by Akko. There's a Naaman, or maybe it's over the Kishon.
Was it? Maybe the water would have been a massive. Because just like 10 years ago, it was like much bigger, So imagine like
No.
Yeah,
No, it's too, yeah. So that's one story which we could think about over here, that when the Mitzrim, when you're pressured and you're trying to fight something, but you're scared of it, and you're doing it without self-presence, you're doing it from a place of fear, what damage you can cause. This guy caused himself to lose his gem because he was coming at it from the fear. There's another story I'm thinking about. There's a city called Luz, and it's a city that nobody dies in. They don't need to work out. They don't need to go to the gym. They just never die. The Gemara speaks about the city. And once people had enough of life, they walk out of the city and they drop dead. So the story goes like this. What?
You can't do that.
You can't live in that city?
They can't go out.
Oh, you can't go out. Okay. No, it's a natural process. It's just the natural process of the world. You're just going out to the natural process of the world. You don't have to stay inside it. You don't have to. There's a big question.
Go on, it's like a meeting system.
Bikaron, it's like putting the plug. Can you
Yeah.
pull the plug on somebody? You're resuscitating him. Now, naturally, he's going to die. And from the city, we can learn, right? Naturally, they're going to die. It's just the city that's resuscitating them.
So from that, you can
And-
learn that you can pull a plug.
Right. Right. So that's what, obviously, you're not allowed to pull the plug and
And
all
you
the rabbis speak
Can't
about it.
lose.
All the rabbis speak about it, but this place, which we don't know where it is, right?
Because it's opposite with the flood, he's already on life saving.
Yeah.
You take him off, you're already.
He's fine, but here
There's an option.
it's the same thing. But it's the same thing it's the same thing. You're in Luz, you're already resuscitated. You're in the city.
You can't go out.
Okay. So the Gemara clearly says that you can go out. And the story goes like this. Shlomo Melech is walking through his palace and he has nice rooms. His palace is probably higher up from David's palace. If you go to Ir David, you can see what David's palace is. That's pretty close to the beginning. You get to Amon David. You go down the stairs right at the beginning, you're in David's palace. Shlomo's palace is a little high up. We haven't really dug up that area too much, but it's very close to where Horus built the Hulda stairs. So Horus probably destroyed anything from the time of Shlomo. But Shlomo had a big palace, nice big rooms, and he's walking between these rooms, and he sees Malach HaMavet. What are you doing here, Malach HaMavet? So Malach HaMavet, and the Malach HaMavet's kind of like worried. What are you doing here? He says, oh, I'm looking for these two guys. They say they're your scribes. They write for you. And I'm looking for them. And Shlomo knows exactly who he's talking about. And they both need to die. And he can't find them now, Malach HaMavet. So Shlomo right away finds them and says, you right away pick up and you run to Luz. You have to make it there before Malach HaMavet. And they don't even pack their stuff. They just get up and they leave.
Somebody else can be bringing them.
And they run to Luz. And then the next day, Shlomo Melech sees Malach HaMavet. And he's laughing. He says, why are you laughing? He says, you don't even know those two guys? I was supposed to pick them up from the entrance to Luz. Miraculously, they made it over there. They made my life so much easier. If they would have stayed in your palace, I would have never found them. This is the Gemara in Maseches Sota. So there you can see also, when you're worried, a lot of times you're going to do stuff that's going to be counterproductive. It's going to cause your demise. It's going to cause your damage. Don't act. Also, a lot of times people, when they're worried about an accident, I have a client who was driving on the road and he thought he saw a motorbike just behind him in like his blind spot. So he swerved and he totaled the car. He drove into a banister on the side of the road. And he was in the hospital for a very long time. And yeah. And so when you do things from fear, you don't even know how it's going to end up. It's pretty difficult. Oh, hi. Come in. We're pretty much towards the end over here, but that's great. We moving on to something else.
I look what you saw on time.
Yeah.
The shift was late.
The rest right. Sarah Shema is always late, right? We started a little earlier.
For the davening, you need to wait for the minyan. Hey, you can just start. And count the people on Zoom as well.
So Moshe Rabbeinu, the Parsha spans over many years. It starts off with Moshe Rabbeinu being born, and he goes that it's 80 years, this Parsha, right? Because Moshe is 80 years old when he comes back to Mitzrayim. So it spans for a long time. Some Parshas are short, some are very long. Sefer Bereshis encompasses over like 2,000 years, right? A Sefer Devarim is just 1 month. Because it's not about the time. It's about the essence. And so Shemos itself is an 80-year parsha, which relatively for Sefer Shemos is long. And there won't be any parshas. We only have 40 years till the end of the Torah from the end of Parshas Shemos, right? So Moshe Rabbeinu, he leaves Mitzrayim, he goes to Midian, and he gets married to Tzipporah over there. And then he goes to Chorev, and he's a shepherd, and he's by Har Sinai, and he's shepherding his sheep. and then he loses the sheep. He sees the sheep go into some cave, so he follows it, and then he sees the snare. He sees this snare, the burning bush, and he says, he finds the sheep, and he says, "Asur na ve'er'eh samara hazeh." I want to see what's going on. He could have just left, right? He could have just, but he didn't. He was curious, and he goes, and then Hashem comes to him. He says, "Shalom aleichem alum." It's when he comes close that he sees that it's burning and it's not being eaten up. It sounds like Asurna. He's not that close to the side, but he's developing curiosity. And then Hashem comes to him, and Hashem says to him, Maze biadecha, what are you holding? And he says, it's a matter. And why is Hashem asking this? He's also developing a certain curiosity in Moshe, so that he can start telling him that he's going to be the manhig. Right? It's an important aspect. We should nurture our curiosity. We have curiosity to a lot of things. When you speak about self-presence, when you speak about being in a better place emotionally, you want to have self-presence in the 8 C's. They have to do with the self-presence. One of them is curiosity. So the natural curiosity within us, we want to always develop that. And you can see that a little bit over here. This matter, by the way, has a much bigger story. This matter starts with Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov has the matter, and he says, and Yaakov Shemoni, it says, that was Yaakov's matter, the matter from the time of Yaakov, then passes on to Yehuda, and Yehuda gives this to Tamar, who then gives it back to him. The matter then eventually ends up with Moshe Rabbeinu, ends up with Aaron, ends up later on with David HaMelech. It says by David, Ve'ikach maklo b'yado, and it goes through each king and king, all the way till Churban Abayis, and then it goes all the way to Churban Abayis, and once it gets to Churban Abayis, it's put away, and we're going to get it back for Melech HaMashiach. When Melech HaMashiach comes, we're going to have it for him. Now, there's another interesting thing I want to tell you about the matter, about the snare. So,
Is that the same thing you used to do on
yeah, and it goes between Moshe and Aaron. Sometimes Moshe has it, sometimes Aaron has it. I went to Poland. I was in Warsaw. There's one shul that remains in Warsaw that was always there. Warsaw, Warszawa, was a huge city with 600,000 Jews that lived there. And they had so many shuls. I can imagine how many shuls they had. They had hundreds of shuls. None of them survived. The only one that survived is a shul called Nuzik. And it's a nice, pretty shul. The guy called Nuzik didn't have any kids, and he wanted to build a shul. So he wanted to have his name remembered. So he built this shul. And I went there with a group. They didn't listen at the beginning because there's security and since the 7th of October, the security, all the shuls around the world, security became very, very tough. And they didn't let us in. You can see we're a front group. They wouldn't let us in. And then the rabbi called me up personally. He said, no, it was a mistake. Please come back. And we came back, we went inside. I looked at the Parshas of Nuzik, and the Parshas has the snare on it. The snare boel v'nenukal. Why would it have the snare on it?
the Shoah and everything was burned.
Everything was destroyed. Everything was burnt by fire, and you have one thing that survives. This is the snare. The shul is the snare. It survived all of it. When I saw it, I didn't understand it. I had to come back over here. I spoke to Yehuda, and Yehuda just put 2 and 2 together. And he said, Yehuda's my brother. He said, oh, that makes sense. Warsaw they call themselves the city of the Phoenix. Warsaw was terribly destroyed by the Nazis. In 1943 was the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, and the Nazis demolished the whole ghetto. Nuzik is actually just outside. It was in the smaller ghetto, which was already closed. But then in 1944 was the Polish uprising in Warsaw, the general Warsaw uprising, and then the Nazis destroyed everything to the ground. And so when you go to Warsaw today, almost everything's new. So they call themselves the Phoenix, but the Shul wanted to take the symbolism, the archetype from the Torah. And so we're going to finish off just explain a little bit more about the snare. Which plant is the snare? The snare is the petal. You like to drink petal? The red stuff? Petal is a raspberry. Very good. Not a blackberry. You know what a blackberry is? A brick that used to... that's when the iPhone came out, that was they were competing. So the raspberry is the petal, and there's a Masorah that is the snare.
Have it?
In Israel, you have it in many, many places. Always, where have you seen it? No, it always grows next to water. You don't have it in the Negev. It naturally will not grow in the Negev, even by the rivers over there. What? Why don't we eat the petal of the raspberry? Because of bugs. It's red. You know what? You can see the bugs in it. The blackberry is the problem because the bugs are going to be black. And the blackberry, you really can't see if there are bugs in it. But you can. I went with Shmuel to Dubai, and they have beautiful raspberries and blackberries and then lots of fruit. Very, very clean. And so we checked what we could check over there. And I ate a lot of things that I usually wouldn't be able to get.
Where you buy it?
In Dubai, it's everywhere.
Oh,
In Dubai, it's everywhere in Dubai. Yeah, here in Israel, I don't know where you get them. But when if you just go to a tree, to look. Yeah. Yeah. So if you go to rivers, not in the Negev, you'll find it. Now, this is in the desert that this happens. Moshe Rabbeinu goes to Har Sinai, in the cave, he sees the snare. So that's another miracle within a miracle. It's a plant that only grows next to water. And maybe that's the first thing Moshe says. 1 second, he comes into the cave, he sees a bush. Firstly, a shepherd is always interested in plants because that's what his sheep eat. And he needs to know, a shepherd needs to know, you need to move around. In the winter, you have a lot more greenery, but in the summer, there's less. Like the shepherds of the Bedouins in Midbar Yehuda, they start going more and more towards the mountains late in the summer, more and more towards Yerushalayim late in the summer because there's no greenery anymore down over there. And so a shepherd needs to know. So he sees a plant in here, which is interesting. Maybe that's what the sheep was drawn to, but it's burning. And so then he got interested. So there's one miracle is that plant shouldn't be there at all because it belongs next to a spring. And another thing, it's on fire and it's burning. And it actually has two elements over here. It has the water and it has the fire. And so that's an interesting thing. About the water, I guess we'll finish off with this thought. The water, so why do they decide to throw the kids into the Ya'ar? Why not just slit their throats? Yeah, there's so many ways you can kill babies. Why throw them? It's horrible to talk like that, I know. Yirmiyahu, but why throw them into the water? Oh, it says Moshe and Yisrael loke b'mayim. They knew that he's going to be punished with water, so they said, let's throw all the boys into the water so that they get punished, so that we dealt with that already. And so that's what they did. They threw them into the water. Now, then Moshe Rabbeinu was born, and then Yocheved and Miriam decide to put him right next to the water also, like on the water, on the reeds right next to the water. Why would they put him over there in the water? So that they'll see that he's in the water, and then they'll leave him alone. They'll say, okay, let's stop throwing the babies into the water anymore because we saw that it already happened. Now they were correct. Moshe Rabbeinu was look at b'mayim because much later on, at the end of his life, He
By
by Meriva, right? Hashem
Because
says,
the-
talk to the rock to get water out, and he decides to hit it, and then the water comes out with his mateh. Right,
He's using his mateh for the wrong.
right. He's using his mateh, for the wrong thing. But you can also see this idea of water over here and fire earlier on. Yeah.